I'll take it,
Dad
Senator.
or son? Okay.
David Barton with Wall Builders, here to testify on behalf in support of SB10 and SB11. And as Matt just covered, the history and tradition test is what the court has now given us, which is the way it had been prior to that period of 40, 50 years of difference on the court. And particularly with the Ten Commandments, it's hard to find anything more historical and traditional. We have a collection of more than 100,000 documents, 2 world-class museums up in the Fort Worth, Dallas area. And I brought some of those documents, but the first textbook ever published in America was in 1690 in Boston. It's called the New England Primer. It was used in public schools throughout America all the way into the mid-20th century. So over 200 years. This happens to be a 1777 copy of that little first grade textbook. This textbook here, and we call it first grade. They didn't have grade levels in, but this is where you started. This is where you learned to read. It has 43 questions for first graders on the Ten Commandments. So that is the starting textbook for America that was used for several centuries. Another major textbook series came from Noah Webster. We know him for Webster's Dictionary. Webster was a soldier in the American Revolution. He was a judge and a legislator afterwards. The dictionary he did, but many textbooks also. He's called the Schoolmaster to America. This is his American history textbook. And in the back of this is a section called Advice to the Young. And in that he covers the Ten Commandments, how important the Ten Commandments are in American history and in culture at that point in time. Beyond that, the next major reader would be the McGuffey readers. Came out in the 1820s, 30s, and 40s. This is the second reader. The second reader has several lessons for second graders on the Ten Commandments. So the books I've just mentioned talk about the Bible as the source of the Ten Commandments. So the Bible is the best-selling book in American history. Noah Webster's works are the second best-selling book in American history, and the McGuffey Readers are the third best-selling book in American history, and all have the Ten Commandments. So a lot of history tradition there. Going to SB 11, when you look at the use of scriptures in schools, going back to something as those early textbooks, but even a man named Benjamin Rush was a signer of the Declaration of Independence. He ratified the Constitution. John Adams said he's one of our 3 most notable founding fathers. He started the first Abolition Society. He started 5 universities. He's the primary doctor in America, called the father of American medicine. But he did this work in which, in 1790, he's called the father of public schools under the Constitution. He pointed out that in our public schools we would not take the scriptures out. That is the foundation. He gave more than a dozen reasons we would not remove the scriptures. This is a piece that was actually reprinted in 1831, talking about that piece he did on a dozen reasons we would never remove the scriptures from our public schools. This is a work done by a man named Fisher Ames. He's a framer of the Bill of Rights. He actually is the man who wrote the First Amendment language in the House of Representatives. And in this, he has an essay on how we must never let the scriptures get pushed to the back of the classroom in public schools. That has to be part of what we teach, as part of our culture, part of our traditions and histories. And then this happens to be a Supreme Court decision from 1844. It originated in Philadelphia when a government-run school there decided they weren't going to allow the scriptures at the school. And the Supreme Court, in an 8-0 decision, said, no, if you're a government-operated, government-run school, you will not exclude the scriptures from your school. And so that was our previous history and tradition until we came to that 1962 case, Ingle Vital and Aberdeen Ship and Murray Collette, 3 decisions in 12 months. The court said, we don't care how it's been for the last 2 centuries, we're doing something different. But now we're back to the way it had been before. So that would be SB 10, SB 11. The other things I'd point out is if we start saying that these 10 Commandments have no place in classrooms, then we need to cancel our 8th grade trips to Washington, D.C. Because when we go inside the Supreme Court, I personally have counted more than 50 copies of the 10 Commandments displayed inside this 10 court, depictions of the 10 Commandments. So do we tell kids they can't go in the Supreme Court, or next door to the Library of Congress where Moses is holding the 10 Commandments, or across the street to the Capitol where outside the doors of the House chamber are posted the 10 Commandments, or down the street to the National Archives where the Constitution and Declaration displayed and the 10 Commandments depiction in the same room? So all of that is there. I would also point to the fact that the Constitution, the Declaration mentions God 4 times. The 10 Commandments mention God twice. If we're going to say we can't do the 10 Commandments, we've got to say we can't do the Declaration, because that's twice as much God mentions as we have in the Declaration. And final thing I'd point out is that we have 50 states that all have what are called Good Samaritan laws. Now, Good Samaritan laws are not just based on a religious teaching, they're based on a Christian teaching. It's found exclusively in Luke 10, and no one challenges those laws. It's part of our culture, part of who we are. So the presence of religion is not a disqualifying factor in any way, shape, fashion, form, and that's our history and tradition.
Thank you very much. That's a lot in 5 minutes.